Hello everybody. We are going to continue on through a guide to your lab reports, scientific method, also known as PORHEPCAC. So far we have talked about problem, observations, research, hypothesis, and we've gone into a little bit more detail than even this page has, and that should already all be in your notes. Tonight, or today, we will talk about experiment and procedure. And in an experiment and procedure, the big thing you need to understand is they're one and the same. We do an experiment by following a procedure, and you may need to write a procedure at some time. So this is where you actually do the experiment. Sometimes I'll tell you what to do, and sometimes I'll actually write out your procedure for you, but sometimes I'm going to have you write the procedure. Sometimes you may completely design the lab yourself and then write the steps of a procedure. Remember that your steps should be numbered in order and that they should begin with a strong verb. These two things right here are probably the two most important things about writing a procedure. But of course, like with the other things we've already done, I do want to go a little bit more in detail to talk about how to write a good procedure. So, and that basically is writing a good set of directions. Instructions, directions, procedure, to me, all one and the same. But for PORHEPCAC, we call it procedure, but what we're really talking about is just writing a good, clear set of instructions. So, written instructions are most effective if you follow these kind of rules, these guidelines. First, hold on. Sorry for the technical difficulty, but I think we're back. All right. The best thing to do in order to write good, clear instructions is to begin with a clear title. Just like a graph, it is best to have a clear title so we know what these instructions are going to help us do. So instead of just saying fax machine, we should say operating instructions for the universal fax machine. And in today, let's try to bring this page up to date a little bit. Don't just say cell phone or even iPhone 5S or whatever the most current cell phone is. Say operating instructions for the Apple iPhone 5S. And people will know exactly what you are about ready to give instructions for. The next thing is divide the instructions into sections if it will help. Now, a cell phone doesn't just make phone calls. It sends texts. It does social media. It allows you to get on the internet. It allows you to download apps and play games. So, for every one of the things I just mentioned, you may want to have a separate section, a section on taking pictures, especially with a cell phone. So that cell phone is not just a phone, it's many different pieces of equipment, and each function of a cell phone may need its own section. This page says operating instructions for a Sony digital camera require 6 sections. And I'm sure cell phones probably require more than that. The next thing is a version of what we saw on the previous page for PORHEPCAC. It said that they need to be numbered. Well, those numbers need to be in order. They need to be in chronological order. When you do instructions, you always need to proceed forward in time and not backtrack. You're not going to get to step 6 of some instructions and then say, oops, I forgot to tell you step 3, so let's go back and insert a new step. You just need to get all your steps in order, renumber if necessary, And step 1 is the first thing you do, and step 10 is the last thing you do if you have 10 steps. But go as many steps as you need. Next, and this was the second thing on the previous page, every step should start with a strong active verb in the command mode. The previous page said strong verb and left it at that. Well, now we're going to call that strong verb an active verb. You're telling somebody what to do, and that's also reiterated in the command mode. You are active. Somebody is doing something. You're not even saying please. You are commanding. You're just telling them what to do. Don't start with you. Whoever's reading the instruction is the person you're talking to, so you don't have to say you should start the motor. You don't even have to say please. You don't have to say you should please maybe possibly think about starting the motor. You just flat out tell them what to do and say start the motor. Point blank. Just not nice. We're trying to tell somebody what to do. Give them some clear instructions. Start the motor. They know that you're talking to them, and they're not expecting you to be nice about it. The next one, use short sentences. Short, sweet, and to the point. Break up long sentences if you have to. Most readable sentences have 17 or fewer words. So if you've kind of got a run-on sentence, you may need to make sure you break it up into a couple of shorter sentences. Treat each step of a process in a single separate instruction. Please just don't go on and tell somebody to do 15 steps in step 3. Don't say do this and this and this and this and this and this. You want to tell them to do a couple of things that are related? Okay, but don't tell them to do 5 or 6 things in a single step. The example here is don't write cut the cord and remove 1/2 inch of insulation from the wire. Instead, write cut the cord, strong verb, remove 1/2 inch of insulation from the wire. 2 short sentences starting with strong active verbs that are related to each other. We don't have to say cut the cord in one step, remove 1/2 inch of insulation from the wire in the next step. They're related, but we are doing it in one single separate instruction. Next, write the articles a, and the. So the words a, and the should be kept unless you are really pressed for space. For example, press the arrow key to view the selections is easier to read and understand than press arrow button to view selections. That simple addition of the word the twice, because we have a the there and another one there, those 2 thes make that sentence easier to read. It is shorter, but it's also easier to read. So retain a, and the unless you really need the space. And then finally, place any necessary explanation after the step. If you really need to explain why they're doing it, just say it in a sentence right after. For example, hold your keys as you approach your vehicle. Well, that's a strong active verb. You're telling people what to do. Well, they may be wondering why they're supposed to do that. Well, now you can explain. Experts say you are most vulnerable when getting into and out of your vehicle. So, explanations do not need to be written as commands. We're not starting with a strong verb. We're just telling them why they should be doing what we have just explained to them to do. So in summary, what you should do to write good instructions: begin with a clear title, divide it into sections if you need to, put it in chronological order, number it, begin with a strong active verb in the command mode, tell them what to do, use short sentences, treat each step as a single separate instruction, keep the words a, and the unless you really need the space, and place any necessary explanation after the step. To give you an example of, well, where have you seen this before, I am going to show you, maybe, there we go. I'm going to show you, if I can, this is a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese. I am showing you the directions, and I'm hoping you can read this at home. If not, I am going to read it to you. Step 1 for Kraft macaroni and cheese. Look at what they do. Strong active verb in the command mode. Boil water. They're not saying you, they're not saying please. They are giving you directions, and they are saying boil water. But then if you look very closely here, it says stir in macaroni. Cook 7 to 8 minutes, or until macaroni is tender, stirring occasionally. So strong active verb, stir, cook, strong active verb. They tell you what to do, and then they give you a little bit of information afterwards, or until macaroni is tender, stirring occasionally. Step 2. You can't get any more direct than in one word. Drain. Not please, not you, drain. Do not rinse, return to pan. They're telling you exactly what to do. Drain it, don't rinse it, put it back in the pan. And then add margarine, milk, and cheese, sauce mix, mix well. So they tell you what to add,